My name is Sean. I'm delighted you're joining us for today's ESPC community webinar. Today I'm joined by Eric Overfield, MVP, who will cover AI-powered content management transformation with AI in SharePoint. We love hearing guys have to say, so remember to join the conversation about today's webinar and more on X. Our handle is at ESPC_community and our hashtag is hashtag ESPC26. Tweet us, tag us, and tell us what you learned. Don't forget to check out our Learning Hub, which updates the latest blogs, ebooks, webinars, and how-to videos. You can access and view the Learning Hub by visiting our website, sharepointyear.com, and clicking Content tab at the top. Join us for our next webinar, introducing Microsoft Agent 365, the control plane for all agents, with Shesha Mani, Microsoft, tomorrow, Friday, March 20th at 5 p.m. CET. Don't miss out. Register here at www.sharepointyear.com/register for webinars. To celebrate 25 years of SharePoint, we're giving 25 people a chance to win 50% off their ESPC ticket. Simply use the QR code for your chance to win. As always, if you have any questions at any stage, feel free to type in chat box and Eric will get to them during the webinar. This webinar will be recorded and added to the Resource Center, where you'll be notified by email when it's available. And now I'm going to pass you over to today's webinar presenter. Hello, Eric. Thanks for joining us today.
All right. Hello, everybody. Just make sure you're all hearing me fine and everything's okay. See me
Yeah,
fine?
can hear you perfectly and see you.
Excellent. Let me go ahead and switch my presenter here to my screen. And if you can give me that feedback when you see it.
Yeah, I can see it.
All right. Perfect. Let's get started. Yeah, thank you all for joining us. I'm really looking forward to this hour that you have with me. This stuff is changing really fast, and we got a lot to talk about. So the premise of this has been around this subject matter that many of you may have heard. It used to be called SharePoint Premium, and then Microsoft renamed that to document processing in Microsoft 365, which was an interesting one. And then just recently, Microsoft then made these big announcements around AI and SharePoint. So I quickly scrambled to make sure we sort of fit all this together into one big topic. And I hope you have a lot of fun. So do ask those questions, though. They're off to the side a little bit, so give me a second to get to them. And definitely at the end, we'll get to them. So we got it covered. Those of you who I've not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Eric Overfield. I am the CIO of Creo Spark. We're a North American-based service integrator around Microsoft technologies. My day job is around a lot of data and a lot of AI, and this top's all about AI. So I'm pretty much looking forward to doing all that. I am a Microsoft regional director. I'm a Microsoft MVP. I'm part of the PMP team. Generally, all that means is I really enjoy the community that I'm in. I feel very fortunate and very lucky to be able to participate in all this. It's a fun thing. I'm coming to you live right now. I'm in Atlanta in the United States, in Georgia, state of Georgia, at FabCon. I'll be presenting tomorrow on something totally different on data flows. This is one of the more favorite part of my jobs is just being able to share the knowledge so that you all can be more successful. And that's my big takeaway here. I want to make sure you get the most out of this. So please, ask questions and ask for clarifications as necessary, and we'll do what we can. If you do want to learn about CreoSpark, creospark.com. Happy to work with you on implementing anything you hear today. Cool. That's the whole spiel. Let's get into all the material for you now. The whole point of this is that where it comes down to in the era of AI is based strongly on your data. So how can we extract the most value of the data that's going into your SharePoint sites, so that it's ready for this AI era, and particularly this whole AI in SharePoint. So there's a lot there. The way that I want to do this is we're going to talk some about the document processing side. I want to talk about AI in SharePoint because I feel very much like that would be very unfair in this if we didn't do that. But I'm still then going to go back to still what's available in document processing, because AI in SharePoint is not everything available in document processing. There's a lot of features that still exist that the AI in SharePoint brand is not fully there yet. And it may not, because it's a specific thing that's designed to do something very well. So we need to go through all of that. And you'll have, hopefully here, the whole point is that you'll have some clear understanding of the features that exist. What are the big names that I really want you to remember? The major components that you might be using, as well as, so you might think of things like, we don't need that, so that's good. You'll take that off the list, as well as try to understand what are all these things, syntax and SharePoint Premium and document processing and AI and SharePoint, and how do they all relate, so that as you work throughout the rest of this year, you'll know where to go when you join us. Um, Next year in Amsterdam, or this year, later this year in Amsterdam at ESPC, which really looking forward to that again. You'll know what more questions to ask, and you'll be more prepped as this world of AI is just making things move super fast. Our data, it lives in SharePoint. That's just a fact for those of us within the Microsoft ecosystem, and the foundation of good AI in the workplace, which is what we're seeing now, is only driven by good data that we're able to provide it. Since that lives in SharePoint, what we want to do then is, how can we ensure that the data that we put in SharePoint is actually valuable and can be most useful within this era of AI? And it's not just putting your documents up, it's trying to extract it and process the data to get the important stuff out, so that the AI models, the Copilot effectively, can really utilize your data well to provide the best answers to your end users. Now, there's a whole bunch of things around governance as well that we're not really going to go into today. They're good topics for sure. It's just, that's not really what the document processing is about. So we're going to stick more with processing. But yes, I admit there's more to it than that. The way that I want to do that, we'll look at document processing for Microsoft 365. That's the current branding of this ecosystem of tools that exist. So we're going to spend a lot of time there, because that's sort of the point of this. I do want to talk about AI and SharePoint, which was just announced recently with the Microsoft 25th birthday, which we're going to talk about as well today. And it was formerly known, it is formally known as knowledge agents. So if you've heard of knowledge agents, that's basically what AI and SharePoint is. But AI and SharePoint does encompass more than that. So yes, there are more pieces. We're not going to go into all of it. I'm going to focus more on the knowledge agent side, and how that's going to relate to the document processing side, so that we can figure this out. And I'm going to switch between the two. Then we'll talk about licensing for sure. You need to know what this is going to cost you, because all this costs money. So we want to know what that's going to cost. The prices that Microsoft gives is in USD. That's just the way it goes. So they just price it out that way. That's how I'm going to price it. Of course, you'll need to be processing that in your currency. And really how I've seen it work is that Microsoft just does the currency conversion for you, and that's what it's going to cost you, primarily on a pay-as-you-go basis. I look to provide you the most amount of best practices and tips throughout the entire conversation. So I'm not going to have like this big at the end, here's my takeaway. I'm hoping that you see all of that throughout this whole hour that you're with me. And please do try to get those questions in. I will find a way to answer them. If I don't have time on this time to answer them, I'll work with the ESPC to get you answers out somehow, so you can be, that's the whole value here. You can just go to YouTube and you could probably get a lot of the materials I'm talking about, but then you couldn't ask that feedback. You couldn't get those live questions. And if you're going to go to Copilot or you're going to go to Claude or something, I wouldn't trust those answers right now. I find that when I ask technical questions to really any AI model, the answers are wrong, straight up wrong. Like, they sound right, but they're wrong. So the point of this, again, talking about document processing in Microsoft 365, this is all built around SharePoint. There's some features that are in the old SharePoint Premium I still think is worth calling out, but we're not going to talk about them today. That's like backup, archive, SharePoint embedded, etc. But that's what this all is. And if we look at the feature set that exists still within document processing for Microsoft 365, it's quite a lot. There's a lot of features there of autofill columns and document translation, on into still like taxonomy tagging, image tagging. You could go back and forth and say, is that useful or not? Yeah, I understand processing rules, some taxonomy components, even the PDF components. They're like, this is all still included in the ecosystem of document processing for Microsoft 365. And I want to make sure that we're aware that we agree on the terms that we're talking about. If those of you who have heard about SharePoint Premium, this is effectively what used to be called SharePoint Premium. They just had, started diverging they split up the licensing effectively because it just got too much, I believe. I actually don't fully know why they did it, but Microsoft nomenclature, they just like to keep changing things. Now, you're not going to see this breakdown by Microsoft much anymore, but I still think it really helps understanding document processing. there's these content experience. Like if we just take that previous slide and we look now at a broader range of content experiences, these are things like content assembly, eSignature, some annotations and merging and whatnot. Those are the working with the content that we have. There's the document processing. This is a lot where we would want to spend time. This is around taking the content we have and really extracting information from it and putting it into metadata columns. That allows AI, well, I mean, it allows your own processes to now be able to search and use that data better, especially using these things, these different kind of models, the machine learning models, where you could extract information not just from text files but from PDFs as well, and you could extract the metadata from it, put it into metadata columns and into content types, which still are relevant in SharePoint. But the big one is our autofill columns, and that's where we're going to spend a lot of time because that's the I think it's very clear that Microsoft is pushing us down that route. If we want to extract metadata from our content, if we want to make our content more searchable, more usable for ourselves and for AI, autofill columns is the way we want to go. But content processes is all about really getting metadata out of things, including images, by the way. So grabbing tags or whatnot, extracting kind of information from imagery. There is this piece around content governance, which really has been extracted from document processing. So that doesn't really, these things exist. Backup still exists, archive still exists, SharePoint embedded is still there, SharePoint Advanced Management is still there, and knowledge agents kind of could fit in all this, but that's separate. That's the AI in SharePoint from your Copilot license. So if you ever want to think about how all this fits together, and what the point of it was, I still like this breakdown. It's just I'm not finding it from Microsoft's material anymore because they're, I believe, and I'm not giving away any NDA information. This is how I see it. We're being pushed down the AI in SharePoint knowledge agent and autofill route, but these other features still exist and they still have some use cases. Some of the use cases in general for document processing, this is about being able to process a lot of the incoming documents that are being put into document libraries in particular and extracting information from it. Some things, though, that get really not a lot of attention, and I think should, is around the bulk document generation and automatically generating documents, which I think is pretty cool stuff that you can do there. It's all this whole content assembly component. And I'll be showing this. So you can still build these flows in Power Automate to be able to take information maybe from lists or libraries, or to be able to inject information and automatically generate these Word documents that you can then get uploaded into into SharePoint document library. And there's still some real value to that. And that's not something that knowledge agents necessarily, AI and SharePoint necessarily can help with. Still pretty some cool stuff here. Yeah, so and then I talk about this idea of making our content better for AI. That relates directly to also making our information just more findable and searchable within our organization. I mean, I don't ever actually, I can't think of really any ever going to a direct document within SharePoint. If I don't know where it is, I'm not going to go looking for it by going into document libraries. I now go to SharePoint search. I go to our organizational portal and I just start typing in words and search. And I'm getting pretty good results now, but a lot of times it's because we've been able to extract the metadata, which helps me find it. Yes, I could probably be using Copilot to help me do that, but the search is still really good. And I don't want to have a conversation. I just need to go find the file so that I can open it up in Word or something and go edit it. But I don't even know where it exists. That search is important. Extracting that metadata helps make search that much more easy. So there's quite a lot of use cases here. What I've also shown here is what's the level of effort versus the customization. There's still some ability to do like OCR and image tagging. These are still available. This is about extracting text from imagery or being able to tag imagery. There's no customization, but no effort. Easy to do. When you start want to have customization, the effort normally goes up with that. Now, the easy ones would be something like eSignature and content assembly, and the big one, autofill columns. These have a lot of customization ability, and the level of effort is not overly challenging. There is still some pieces, though, around using machine learning to extract data. This is the old syntax stuff, and I have another slide shortly, which it's still there. There's still some use cases for it. We're just not seeing much customization or much progress from Microsoft on improving those. They really moved us down the autofill side. So we'll talk about it. Don't worry. Just want to give you some ideas. Some adoption components here. Most of the document processing that I do talk about is on a pay-as-you-go model. What's nice though, and I've been giving a talk on premium for about 2 years now, and there's this free limited capacity, and they set a deadline date, and every time we hit it, they then expand it. It used to be December of 2025. Now it's June of 2026. We get this free limited capacity, and so that you can see on the right-hand side, there's a breakdown of you can test all of this out, and you get some free components of it. You get autofill columns. You can process 100 items. You can translate up to 1 million characters. All of it for free. It's a great way to try this all out and work with it and all that. The big value here is don't just jump in. I would argue, find out what are you trying to do with your content, or why are you trying to process the content you're trying to process. And so identify those business scenarios, find out who's going to be involved in it. Then you can go ahead and go to a readiness checklist and start to play with these tools to see if they're able to do it what you in fact want them to do. So let's jump in though, because we have a lot to cover. I know that, and I do like to talk because I just got so much in my head that I want to share with you. We're going to start with autofill columns because this is where I believe it's very clear Microsoft saying, like, if you want to process your documents, if you want to extract metadata, if you want to be able to make Copilot more useful on top of your data, this is where you're going to go. So autofill columns, the whole point of this is really using natural language to be able to process content and to fill columns with some sort of data. Very easy to use. It's this, when you go to add a column, you can now add an autofill column type. And what happens is you provide effectively a prompt for your content to then fill in some data within a given column that you create. Pretty interesting, pretty simple. So like if you look at the top one here, what's this prompt? So evaluate this document, and if the material is lightweight, then go ahead and do something with it. And your data in that column will be filled with the LLM, effectively think like Copilot here, ChatGPT. It's going to process the content in your data in your document and go ahead and fill in the value. And you can do all kinds of stuff. You can give it in your parameters, like you only use one of these values. Be sure that your response is within is 3 words of max. You can do all sorts of things with that prompt, and you can test it and play with it too. So what happens here is you see the second piece down. There's a whole test feature where you can point at a file that's in your document library that you're applying this autofill column to, test it, and you can see what the result is to validate that it does in fact do what it is that you want it to do. There's a lot of components here, a lot of things to think about here. This is the latest info I have as of yesterday. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I'm right here. So the value here is to automatically extract, summarize, and generate metadata based on the content that you're uploading. So you provide that prompt. That's then going to use an LLM, that large language model. Just think, if you don't know what that is, it's the back end of Copilot or ChatGPT or Claude or whatever it is that you do. And you can have it do something. And like, look at this other example that I have. So what's the total number of hours agreed upon? So respond with a valid number. I'm giving these instructions. If you can't do it, respond with not applicable. So you would think that the value you get out of here is a number or the word not applicable. And you'd want to test this to make sure that it does do what you expect it to do. And I found it works pretty well. Now, there's a lot of file types you can run this on, including images and PowerPoints and whatnot. Pretty cool. PDFs even. Like, there's some good stuff there. Quite a lot of column types that you can use. So, not just text, but you can also do number, yes, no, a choice, even a link or whatnot, currency. So you can provide the column type that you want, and then you, of course, need to make sure your prompt is telling it to do that kind of type. Pretty cool. And European audience here, your languages that are supported by Copilot, which are most languages, are also supported here as well. So that's super, super, super cool. You can even point it to term sets. This does not have bulk processing yet, and you can't do it in subsites. You do have to do it in the site collection side, but there's some flexibility here to do this. This is going to cost you money per process, so per document. The current rate that I've seen, it's a penny, so a US, half a penny, half a US penny per transaction. And the way that they word a transaction is per page. So if you have multiple autofill columns for a given document, then a transaction is a page of content, not a full document. So it can get expensive if you have a multi-page document. So you got to work with this, play with this, see what this looks like, see if this is the right choice for you, and consider your budgeting for it. You do get that 100 free a month, so you can start to understand how it works as you play with it and figure out what's going on, and is this going to actually make sense for us? Because it could get expensive fast if you've got these long documents and whatnot, and lots of autofill columns. So that's autofill columns. That's the biggie. Very simple. You basically can go into a document library. You can add a column. The column type is autofill column. You give it a prompt. You can tell it what type you want, and then you start testing it and start to see what happens, and get the value from it. I need to pivot though, because this is where we start to bleed into this new piece that Microsoft has released, and it's not so much new; it's just sort of a rebranding of this knowledge agents. But I think this is where we're going to start to see Microsoft spend more time, and this is that AI in SharePoint. This is really where we're going to be using AI, more modern AI, these large language models and the generative AI, to really transform how we're going to be managing our content across all of SharePoint. And I think a history here is really useful. So if you look at document processing that I've been talking about, this has been going on for quite a while. Started as Cortex, moved through Syntax, became SharePoint Premium, and then last year they renamed it on us to document processing for Microsoft 365. But those are all very related. Now, the AI in SharePoint lineage is much more compressed. Here, they released knowledge agents in this public preview not too long ago. And then they made some big announcements at Ignite at the end of November, or that early November last year. Then in March of this year, so we're talking a few weeks ago, not even, they then renamed and expanded the scope of these knowledge agents and removed that name, so that you're not really going to find anything called knowledge agents anymore. It's just all this AI in SharePoint.
Eric, just a
Yeah.
question on what you're talking about there. Isn't this feature automatically available, or do we need to change some of the tenant settings?
Now, this was an interesting one. I have found I have found in my tenant I had to turn it on, and you can control this. You can control if you what piece? Are you talking knowledge agents and AI and SharePoint, or document processing? So let me just answer both. Document processing, you have to turn all that on. That's a very specific thing. You have to turn it on, and I do talk about that more towards the end. The AI in SharePoint, it does need to be linked to you. You get that only with Copilot licensing, and you do have granular control on that on the admin side. Beyond the scope of really what I really wanted to talk about, but it effectively, more than likely, you're going to have to turn it on. You'll need to find the documentation from Microsoft Learn on AI and SharePoint, and you can see how to, in fact, activate this so that you can use it.
Perfect. And someone just said, what do you mean no subsites? Do we have to have a flat or hub structure for autofill columns to work on our SharePoint sites?
That's what Microsoft's documentation currently says. So you only get the document libraries that are in the root of your site collection. That's correct.
Perfect. I'll leave
Yep.
the other questions
Yeah.
to the end.
Yeah. Thank you. So the big takeaway here is that Premium got really split up into all sorts of things, and knowledge agents here, that if you hear that, it's basically now AI in SharePoint. I'm going to go down this AI and SharePoint route just a little bit to kind of keep us grounded here, and then we'll come back to all the document processing, because this is a big takeaway for us here. So there's some pieces I'm not going to talk about. That's the SharePoint UX and the enhanced governance. But when Microsoft turned 25 in March of this year, which is now still a few weeks ago or a week ago, they announced this whole AI in SharePoint, which is really about this agentic building of your sites beyond the scope of this discussion. The AI-powered metadata, that's what we're talking about. The conversational list, being able to have conversations with the list was included, and even site creation through more of an AI interface, a chat interface. Beyond the scope of here, but I wanted you to know, yes, this is all related this whole thing, and document processing sort of fits in that AI-powered metadata. There is some new UX components that are super cool, very interesting. There's all this cool governance that's been added as well, which the governance is going to be really important for Copilot. So start looking for those sessions, because there's going to be full sessions. There's going to be full webinars, definitely at ESPC later this year. I know there will be full sessions on how to use AI through the UX and all the governance stuff. That the next the webinar tomorrow even is really about the that Agent 365 component. I believe it's about using some of these new feature sets. So what's the big takeaways here? Look, that we know that if you're going to be using Microsoft 365 Copilot, and now with Copilot Cowork, I think is going to be really interesting. That new E7 licensing they're talking about. SharePoint's going to be that's where most of that data is coming from for our organization. And what we can do to help provide better, cleaner data is going to make that investment in Copilot that much better. And even if you're not using Copilot, still, these feature sets are going to help your users get more value out of the content. We've been asking you for metadata for effectively 25 years. This is what's going to help. So, yeah. Two more pieces here around the AI and SharePoint, and then we'll flip back to document processing here. But the knowledge agents that existed before, this was document libraries. This was really, it required the Copilot license, of course. It was in public preview, but you had to use PowerShell to get it all turned on. What changed is that AI and SharePoint now adds more pieces. It's still the same Copilot license needed, so there's an extra cost, which is nice. And if you want to start using more of the AI and SharePoint features, which goes way beyond the autofill columns and whatnot, you're going to start seeing these floating Copilot action buttons in the UX, and it gets a little interesting, a little crazy. So a lot of stuff stayed the same. That's going to be that Copilot license is still required, but no extra cost beyond that. And it's still grounded in your SharePoint content, which is super cool. You're just going to start seeing some interesting floating buttons when you turn this on and use it. So, and then lastly, the AI and SharePoint, because all this, by the way, I mean, this was not what I intended to do on the webinar, but when I saw this all come out a few weeks ago, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm not going to lie by omission to you people and ignore this. So it's definitely changed things up a little bit. So lots of cool things in AI and SharePoint. What I care about here is number 2. So number 2 being the AI-powered metadata. That is effectively utilizing utilizing the autofill columns to be able to power our metadata creation, so that we can actually get something out of it. The rest of it, cool stuff. Oh, and the conversational list I think is really interesting as well. But it's going to be interesting to see how this progresses through the year, because I'm sure you all see it as well. AI is moving so fast. It is extremely challenging to keep up. I'm doing my best, and it is. Let's be fair and direct. Nobody knows everything about AI right now. No one does. There's just so much going on, and it's just so fast. You just can't keep up. You do the best you can and try to stay focused on where you are. And if you're in the SharePoint space, if you're in the Microsoft 365 or the Copilot space, let's try to stay within that. And you might be able to have a more complete view of where things are, but it's just moving fast. We do the best we can. Yep, I'm trying to keep us sort of focused here. Okay, so with the back half, let's go ahead and let's go back into document processing, because that still is the point, and there's still a lot of value here. This is effectively the existing pre-AI and SharePoint pay-as-you-go. That's the PAYGO, pay-as-you-go document processing for Microsoft 365. And I want to move down this list because I still think that there's value in these things, and autofill columns don't fill a lot of these needs. So we still need them, and these are still there, and they're still valuable, and there's not necessarily good alternatives. So the first one is document translation, and the next one would be document translation. This is a pretty cool, simple feature set. So you upload a document into your, it was kind of asked, what do you need to do to set all this up? In order for really any of these document processing features to work, including autofill columns, and even to use that free subscription, the free trial stuff that I showed you, you do need to set this up within. So someone's going to have to set it up within your tenant. You do need to link this to an Azure subscription, even though you're not intending to pay for anything, you want to stay within that the free threshold, it still does need to be set up. Most of these features can be turned on and off for the organization, as well as for if you decide to go, you only want it on for certain site collections, you can do that. So document translation is one of them. So one of these features, you're able to turn it on. Once it's turned on for either your tenant or for certain site collections, basically any document library, you can go ahead and translate it. So you can see basically, I click on the three dots here, and you're going to find a translate button. And it does sort of what you would think it would do. It would allow you to select the language that you would like that document translated into. You can translate up to 10 documents into 10 languages at a time. We saw, you get a million characters for free. I think I have the licensing later. I think it's $15 for $15 US. So you do your conversion to your currency, $15 US for every million characters translated, which sometimes can seem expensive to me, but sometimes it could be not, because then you think, okay, well, AI can do that. Like generative AI can do it as well. Yes, but you have to charge that. How are you going to do that document translation and whatnot? But you can go ahead and you can select that you would like this document translated. And then what happens is a new document is created. It typically takes a few minutes, but it takes your original document. It creates a new one with an underscore the language code after it. You can convert quite a lot of files here. CVS, docs, of course, even HTML, Markdown, the PDF with text in it, PPTs as well, text files. These are all available. But if you use legacy file types like a DOC file, the translated will be the modern equivalent. So your DOC file will become a DOCX. And when I say become, it's not going to edit your initial file. That's going to stay the same. It would be the new file created that was translated would be a modern equivalent. So right now, last I've still seen is SharePoint site pages are not supported, but OneDrive is. This is for documents that are put into a document library. There is a limit to the file size. It cannot be overly huge. If there's images within the document, and within the image there is text embedded in the image, that is still not translated. And the password protected files are not supported. And this makes sense because the translation engine is not going to break any kind of permissions, and it doesn't have the permissions to get into for password files. So that won't work. And you can't unlock it with your password and then expect to get translated. It just doesn't work that way. And I don't think it ever will. And that's kind of a good thing, because you don't want Microsoft breaking into things that you didn't think that they should be available to do. So the as I said, with the languages here, it's basically any supported language within the Microsoft system is supported here. Now, there was an article written a little while ago, this back in November, that someone I look up to, Gokin, he also is a big ESPC presenter as well. He presented this whole thing on document translation versus like using Copilot or ChatGPT. I highly recommend reading that. And it's, is document translation no longer really relevant in the era of Copilot, ChatGPT? I do highly recommend reading that if you are looking at this feature, just so you're aware of what's going on in this ecosystem. My belief is that it's a pretty good feature. You can automate this, by the way. There is ability built into the document libraries to basically do some process automation, and it creates a Power Automate rule, which is document translation. So anytime a document is added to a specific document library that you set up, you could automatically have that translated into English, Japanese, and German, whatever it is that you wanted. You could also, though, just use Power Automate, point it into a document library if you wanted, and then route that through Copilot or some other LLM API that you have, and kind of do the same thing. And you might want to then think through is, what does that cost work for you? Because some of those might work well under a fixed monthly fee instead. So yes, like, it's worth looking at. I still think this is a pretty good tool if you do need document translation. It is embedded, it works, and it's a known fixed price. So some pretty good stuff there. Now, eSignature, kind of the next one. This is another big piece within within document processing that we need. There are, of course, other ways to do this. You could be using DocuSign and things like that if you need it. But this is embedded directly into your document libraries within SharePoint. So you don't have to take the documents out of SharePoint, go put them into another system, and then bring them back in or something like that. So this is all about simplifying that process of getting legitimate and really those like legal signatures. So this is available worldwide. And what Microsoft is saying here is that it's yeah, you'll know where it is or is not available. Like they say it is, but some jurisdictions, my understanding is like they wouldn't allow it. It used to just be a US thing, then they did US Canada, then they did US Canada and some of Europe. Now they're just saying it is available worldwide. The way this all works is that they take the document and it is encapsulated and pointed to enter IDs. So internal and external signers, anyone you have signing a document that is stored within SharePoint and you're using eSignatures, they will need an enter ID. And this would require you to allow guest external users within your enter ID. Now, this could be done automatically for you, but some tenant admins don't allow guest accounts within the enter ID. And understand that. If you're in that bucket, then this may not work for you because you do need to allow any signer to be able to have some sort of account within your enter ID. So we're thinking about. PDF and Word is supported. Now, what's good about this as well is you do have that signature tracking, you have purview auditing available, and now this is a newer feature within Word. You can then, as you're working with the document in Word, you can then you can set up an e-signature request directly within Word, and it all is done for you. It's all processed for you. This does also can get integrated with Adobe Acrobat Sign or with DocuSign. And the cost of this, I do have this at the end. The cost is not necessarily cheap. It's a couple dollars, US dollars per document. This is where I do kind of struggle a little bit on it because a lot of us do use DocuSign or Acrobat Sign around the world, and it's more like $100 US a year, and for as many as you want. Now it's per person who institutes the signatures, of course. But I've seen organizations basically say, well, let's go ahead and have one or two accounts do all the document signing for us. We set them all up. So this one's interesting. I like that it keeps everything within SharePoint. If you're looking down that route, I would look to see, could you use eSignature and then tack on DocuSign or whatnot on top of it? So now you can kind of get the best of both worlds. Some of these are going to go a lot quicker. So OCR, optical character recognition. I think this will work out the way that you expect it to. Effectively, it can take your text from an image. You upload an image into a document library where you have this OCR turned on for that document library. It will automatically extract the text from that document library, and it will place it within a column. It is called extracted text. You cannot change that. It is automatically added for you. It is indexed and it is searchable, which is of course useful. And basically, you're paying about 1/10 of a US penny per transaction per image that you upload. And of course, you do get the free that free component, the free pieces of it as well. So it's useful if you are looking to extract text from an image. If you wanted to do this with autofill columns, you could. It is more expensive because it's a half of a US penny per transaction. Here, this is just 1/10 of a penny. You would get a little more control maybe from the autofill column. So you might want to play with this if you need this, if you're trying to extract text from imagery and be able to make them searchable. Because that's the fact, one of the big values is that you just have your image library within your organization, but you want to be able to allow it to be searched by that text. This is a really easy way to do it, pretty cost effective. Available in lots of languages, works within SharePoint and OneDrive, all sorts of document types, what you generally would expect. Some limitations are the image has to be at least a certain size large. It has to be more than 50 by 50 pixels, which makes sense because how much text could you have in something that small? But it does need to be under a threshold of 16,000 pixels wide. When you activate this in a document library, only new images will get processed. And this is done automatically. You basically turn this on for your organization, and you can point it to certain document libraries that you would like this enabled for. any new image added to the document library will then be processed. And there's no real way to reprocess an image for this unless you delete it and then re-add it back to that document library. Now, the one that was new is that images embedded in Office documents, they are now supported if you have OCR enabled in the document library where you're placing a document. That's useful. Content assembly is a very interesting one. So this is the idea that what we used to do is we still, a lot of us still do. You have a document template, like a Word document that you use for a contract or an SOW or for an invoice or for a all sorts of things, policies, procedures, all kinds of stuff. And you would just save that file and you would go through the file and you would find and replace and change all the things you needed to replace. You do this again and again and again and again and again. Yep, totally makes sense. You got to file that TPS report or that end of day briefing or something, and you would have to just create a new copy and you just go and fill out the fields that replace the pieces in the document that you want. The point here is that you with content assembly is that you take a Word document within SharePoint and you split it apart into areas within the document that can be replaced with specific data. You can then have people provide just the data pieces that they want, and the document will get created for them automatically. So what does that look like in practice? So you have a document, a source document, a template, let's say, and you go and basically highlight the areas. This is the creation experience. You go and highlight the areas that would get replaced. So we're seeing here like date and names and things like that, and maybe amounts and things. And you then tell SharePoint what it is that should be filled within that given area. So this should be a date field, and this should have a name or a price. And so you can set it up so that when someone fills out basically a form, a document could then get created for them where the template is already there. The areas get filled with the content that they've provided. That's very interesting. Okay, where it can get really cool is when we start to use something like Power Automate. And if we use Power Automate, what could then happen is you could have a form, you can have an Excel document, you can have a database, you can have these other processes that could take in the data, run it through Power Automate. Power Automate has a connector, still called Syntax, by the way, so be careful there. And you could then run that content directly through Power Automate and automatically use the template that you tell Power Automate to use to then create those documents at the end of the day. Now, one of the places I'm using this right now is and I got inspired last ESPC actually by another presenter, where we're creating basically an SOW generation tool. And we're using AI and stuff to do this to help fill things out. But the way that we create the end document, because we have a template, we know how we want our template to look, but we need certain sections filled out. We're able to use Power Automate and document content assembly to basically take the information that AI helped us generate and go ahead and automatically inject it within that document. So super cool stuff. Lots of stuff you can do here. The catch could be it's the 15 cents per USD, of course, per transaction. So basically per created document that you create is going to cost you that 15 US cents. Again, you do the conversion into your local currency. You do get 50 of these per month so that you can try them out. So by all means, definitely play with this and see what you got. Lots here. I don't like reading my slides. I try to stay away from it so you can kind of read a lot of the stuff. Anything else here I really care about? This is kind of interesting. It does support data tables and conditional sections as well, which can get very interesting. So you can create some pretty sophisticated templates to create some pretty sophisticated documents. And I do believe one of the real powers here is using Power Automate, where you create a form, a Microsoft form, or you create your own process where you're going to use Power Automate to extract the data from the form or to extract the data from some other solution that you've done. And you're pointing your Power Automate to your flow to some other data source so that you can trigger this event and then connect to this syntax connector, which will then you point to the site, you point to the document template, you fill out the fields, and boom, you now have automation for your content creation. There's some really cool stuff there. All right, some easy ones here. There's some tagging that you can do with image tagging and taxonomy tagging with AI. Now, these are ones where I still feel like we need to talk about them. They are becoming less relevant, I believe, because of AI and SharePoint and autofill columns. We have not seen any improvements from the Microsoft SharePoint product group in a long time here. So no words of deprecation. I haven't heard anything. I'm not saying these are going away. They're there. I'm still helping clients use them, and they're still good. It's just I'm not seeing. I just want to be transparent with you. I'm not seeing a lot of changes, so I don't know. I don't. We just think about if you're going to use it. Again, I've heard no deprecation, so I still think this is going to be there. You just have to think about it. So the idea of image tagging here is using AI assisted AI assistants to basically understand an image that you upload into your SharePoint document library, and it will get tagged with some sort of descriptive words. So same thing, kind of like the other feature we were talking about with the OCR component, extracting text. You don't have much control here. So what happens is when you turn this on for document library, you get a new column called image tags, and somewhere Microsoft keeps a list of words, and they extract from the image that you've uploaded descriptors. Okay, this is not something that you can really control. You don't have control of the tagging that will be available to you, and it's not. There's only so much that you can do with what has gotten extracted. So, okay, the value here is, well, if you have images that you just want to be able to search for, this is a great way to just be able to have a document library. You upload the image, you turn on image tagging, and SharePoint will automatically extract some sort of tagging. The tags aren't bad. It's just they're pretty defined for you. What's really helpful here is it's really inexpensive. Again, it's 1/10 of a US penny per image. You could do this with an autofill column. The problem could be that you would have to potentially define the tags, or you have to be very careful on your prompt, and it is 5 times more expensive. So, this is something I suggest you play with. You get 2,500 free per month, which that's actually a lot. Are you uploading 2,500 images each month? Some of you are, some of you probably are not. Maybe you just want to upload 2,000 right now as an image library and you're good to go. This might be a really great way then for you to just have this feature set and be able to extract information, that metadata, from these images that you have within your document library. Now, taxonomy tagging is similar. It's not for images per se, but this is about tagging your documents with a predefined term set. This is one of the ones where I'm going to say you're probably going to start moving into autofill columns because it's the same. It's basically the same price, except it's 5 US cents per document processing rather than autofill columns was per page, which could get expensive. So, there's another article that I had here from Gokin, giving him a big shout out again, talking about the same thing here. So what's the image and taxonomy tagging versus the autofill columns or the knowledge agents. And I left it as knowledge agents because that's what he basically called it, because that was at the time, that's what it was called. That would now normally be, we would want to rename that to AI and SharePoint, but maybe if I present this material again in a few months, I'll make that change. But the idea here is you can create term stores, you can create term sets, and then you could then say, hey, process this content that I've uploaded, a doc, a PDF with text, a PPT, and based on my term set, attempt to find the best term from the term set that represents the content within this document. So it's interesting. It's still available. Still something worth thinking about. I have to go through this next section really fast because this used to be the core of SharePoint Premium, by the way. I'm finding it to be more challenging. This is about the true document processing. This is the true document processing that existed. And this is using a much more classic AI, not from generative AI, but this is the syntax SharePoint Premium. Microsoft's been working on this for many, many years. And the idea here is to extract your content, your metadata, and help classify documents using different types of models, old school models, not LLM models. These are things that you create. And there's 2 main kinds. There's pre-built models and there's custom models. This was getting challenging because it's what should you use? Should you use this document processing or should you use autofill columns? And I'm a consultant. I get to say it depends. There's still value here because these can be really good at extracting very specific information on a much more deterministic methodology. There's these pre-built models that are good for extracting data from contracts, invoices, receipts. They're very inexpensive. And if you are doing invoice extraction, you want to be able to just extract metadata from invoices that get put into a SharePoint document library, this might be a really good tool for you because it's good. The custom models, you have these different kind of custom models that you can train, and there's some power to it. The idea here, like in some of this, so you can sort of see some of these different types of training, what you end up doing is you give it these examples and you say, this is where this data exists in these type of, this was an unstructured model, but you can have different types of layouts and you can say, hey, look, when we receive, say, these invoices, we want to extract this very specific data from this data, and here's where it would be. Autofill columns might be a little more wishy-washy here. It might be a little less defined because it's just more generative. And so there's like freeform documents. You can really start to tell it what it is. I've got one more example of where you have a very structured document like an invoice. And what happens is you end up creating these models and you're able to teach them what things are. But check out the cost of these things. So a pre-built model is only 1 US penny. This is this is again a autofill column would be 5 times more expensive per transaction. This is per whole document. The structured and freeformed are more in line with autofill columns, but based on how many pages you might have, it may be much less expensive. And the unstructured, for whatever reason, is very cheap, and I have no clue why. I don't know why that Microsoft does it that way, but they do. I could spend an hour on this, but this is becoming less relevant because of autofill columns. So this does exist. We've seen no progress from Microsoft in a couple of years on this. So I'm kind of thinking that it's being moved away. It's a challenge. If you are looking to extract information though from different types of structured documents or even unstructured, but you know they're the kind of the same thing, you might want to still look at the document processing models that I just showed you and compare them against autofill. Does that make sense? Autofill columns are going to be a lot easier to set up. Guaranteed, they will be. They may not give you the exact result you're looking for, and they may cost more. So something to think about. Now, very quickly in the last few minutes I have, let's go ahead and go through some of the free stuff that still does exist here. This is free. Once you turn on document processing for Microsoft 365 by going into your tenant admin center, by setting it up and hooking it up to an Azure subscription, you get this for free. They're not the most powerful, but they still exist. So once this idea of annotations, this is when you work with certain kind of files, mainly like Adobe Illustrator files or maybe some PDFs, some imagery. You can create these annotations so that you can open up the document within your SharePoint document library and you can annotate it and other people can see it as well. It's kind of freeform stuff. It allows you to not have to have the actual tools like Adobe Illustrator to see that file so that you can co-work with somebody. Really simple though. Major limitations. You can't actually download or merge the annotations. They don't edit the actual file, which is a good or bad thing. And they're not overly usable, but they do work well if you just want to be able to have a tool to be able to help mark up something so you can, in a sense, chat with someone on it, where you can put that chat in line with the document itself. So yeah, I haven't seen any updates there either. Content query is actually a useful one. This is where you have more power of working with the document library in the searching and getting into the metadata of it. This is just turned on really by default. Again, once you set it all up, once you just set up that free subscription, you can go ahead and turn this on, and you have a lot of default extra columns that are added. But now you can then query additional columns more easily than you could with just SharePoint. It's not to say that SharePoint search doesn't extract this stuff already so that you can search it. This just makes it more easy when you're within a document library to go ahead and click that little arrowy kind of thing in the upper right hand corner and get this drop down where you can get more direct access to the metadata column so that you can search by specific columns. We still do have our merge and extract PDF documents. So this is available free, simple. if you don't have Adobe Acrobat or something, and you just want to be able to extract or merge PDF documents, it's available for you. And you can do some cool stuff there. So some of the licensing components here. So document processing we talked about is that pay as you go. There's some other pieces that are available within the old SharePoint premium terminology or branding. They are totally separate. So that would be something like SAM, backup, and archive. Yes, they're there. So let's look at document processing though. What that all costs. Again, this is all based on the USD. That's just how Microsoft gives it to us. Do have some links for you here if you want to try to help figure this all out for you. The big stuff is the old school document processing is around that 1/10 of a penny to 5 cents per transaction. Autofill columns, I have that listed. Your content assembly, that 15 cents per document creation. I don't forget about the free stuff though. The translation that I've talked about is at $15 per million characters. It's all pay as you go. I give you some links. I always forget these numbers because I don't care. I just go look them up, right? I just go to the link and I can then get the latest and whatnot. I do have some of the old SharePoint premium pricing just because I thought it was useful. So how can we finish this up in the last few minutes? Like, is this still relevant? Well, I think it is. The whole reason why is because as we start to use AI more, this is where our Copilot effectively is going to be able to be better grounded. There's some automation in here, which makes it even easier to extract this metadata. So we really need to do it. It's creating that actionable knowledge, which is really useful. Some of the limitations is that agents can use the metadata, which is very useful. And Copilot can also use the metadata when you point it like to specific document libraries. So some really, really, really cool features there. So generally, though, I'll see if there's any questions because I wanted to have some time. I don't want to go exactly to the top of the hour. So really, where I was trying to get to here is what's this whole document processing for Microsoft 365. I had to get in the AI and SharePoint component. I hope you got enough on the licensing, which is basically it's all pay as you go, all of it. You're going to pay per transaction. That's what it is. I've tried to pepper in those best practices and tips. And yeah, it sounds like there might be a few questions. So let's go ahead and get to them.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. So there's a few questions in now. So next one is, will Microsoft make it easier to connect to different document libraries in Teams? Now we have this huge folder / channels with all types of documents, so not good for automatic columns.
I don't know if I can answer that. I sure hope so. Yes, I don't know how to answer it. I hope so. There's not been the most public announcements, but like here's the thing that I also find in today's world. This is moving also, AI is moving so fast that nobody can tell you where we're going to be in 3 months. So I feel sorry for the product managers at Microsoft because it's really hard to figure out where we need to go, and it's just moving so fast. So I hear you, and I'll do what I can, but I don't have a good answer for you right now.
Perfect. The next question there, Eric, is for the translation, does it adhere to the country's required translation for the organization? I'm with it is very specific for both official languages, for example, English Canada or French Canadian.
Oh, right. Yes. Yeah. So yes, you can select that you want the English Canada version, the English UK version, the English US version. So yes, there are feature sets in there that allow you to be more specific. Okay, basically using any of the the available languages within Microsoft 365, you can select.
Perfect. Next question. I don't know, someone might have already answered it in the chat, but we use SharePoint Online since 2017 and have lots of subsites. Can you recommend a low impact way to migrate to a hub-based flat architecture so we can benefit for these new AI or on SharePoint features? Our main blocker for this migration so far has been an impact on our thousands of users and millions of documents.
Yeah. I saw in the chat someone suggested ShareGate, and I'm a huge advocate of them. But in full transparency, we're also a partner of theirs, so I am a little biased. I do think it's a good tool. AvePoint as well, we work with. They have a good tool. Oh gosh, I just blanked on another big one. I would look at some of the different tools. Oh gosh, now I'm stuck. There's another tool that we use as well that I thought worked really well for enterprise migrations. Probably a tool will help you better. The migration tool that Microsoft provides is much more simplistic than that. You can look at it, but I don't think it's going to quite do what you want.
Perfect. So I think that's all the questions that we ran out of time.
Oh,
So
good. Perfect timing.
yeah. So on
Well, thank
behalf
you
of
all for the. Yeah, I just quick thanks to everybody. I really appreciate it. I appreciate the feedback, the fours and the fives. I appreciate it. I'm always going for those fives, very good. But I know that the Europeans are a tough audience, so thank you for holding me to it. And I'm always doing my best to be better. I know I speak fast, but I get excited about this stuff. So thank you very much for joining me. But please, back to you.
yeah, so I just want to say on behalf of the ESPC community, we'd like to send a big thank you to you again, Eric, for taking time out today. Karis webinar. Really appreciate it.
All
So that's
right.
the end of today's webinar. You can find this webinar and more at sharepointeurope.com/resource center. Thanks again, all of you, for joining us today, and I hope you join us again soon. Take care.
Thanks all.